example is a good recommendation. However, you brought me back to many, many years ago. A corporate entity had a good designer involved, and they listened to him. In this regard to fast and slow, they planted along a boulevard, if you will, alternating ginkgo and one of the faster-growing elms. And I wondered when I first saw them digging holes, I thought, what in the world? Well, a moment's thought puts me into, by the time the ginkgo needs the room in 15 years, the elm will have maxed out. They take the elms out, they leave the maturing ginkgos, and they have a fantastic 100 years ahead of them. So there's all kinds of ways of following up on what you're speaking of, both large and small plants for that matter.
You know, and that's one of the things. Fall is a great time to plant. And if you're putting in shrubs and you buy that plant, it looks so tiny, and you read the tag and you plant it the way it's supposed to be planted, which is always hard. Put some perennials or annuals in between next spring.
Right.
Fill in that space. So as that shrub gets bigger, you'll need fewer plants, easier to move an ornamental grass or a perennial than another shrub. And you give the plant the room it needs, but you don't have to have all those voids in the landscape either. So you're right, lots of ways to achieve short-term and long-term goals.
And let's go back to the phone lines and talk to Jan, who's on with us. Hi, Jan, what's your question?
Good morning. Hello to everyone. Over the course of the late spring up until a week or so ago, and even though it was a hot and dry summer, we had to change our landscaping, so we planted burning bush, mock orange, and winterberry. I've been very faithful about watering them, but what I have noticed throughout this time period is some of the leaves on all of the plants will turn black as if they're sunburned. Is this something that I should have expect because of the weather this summer?
Jan,
something that might grow. Yes.
Where in Ohio are you calling from?
Dover.
Okay, you're just essentially due east of us, and you're running about the same, temperatures and humidities and so on. And I'm going to tell you that you probably should expect some of this leaf blackening.
Okay.
Now, Melinda, you need to phase in here with me, but right now I'm seeing, even in established mature plants of all kinds here in central Ohio, where I have not ventured out from lately, we're getting black leaves, death to inner leaves. The first ones formed this year are being hit hard right now for the last couple of weeks. What are you experiencing?
You know, we've had high temperatures as well, not quite as high, but we've had early in the season when the plants, and boy, hats off to you for getting your garden started and sticking with it and watering. But it's not as good as a good rainfall, and we're seeing the same thing. And one thing I'm seeing is the kind of scorch you're describing where plants, even if you've got moisture there, it's been so hot, they're losing moisture faster than they can pull it up. You know, mulching the soil, if you haven't done that, is always a good thing. It helps moderate soil temperatures, keeps the roots a little cooler in our hot summer, warmer in the cold winter, conserves moisture, suppresses weeds. That can help, but, I agree totally, Fred, that it's just this heat and the scorch and the loss of moisture, even if you're watering. And when you water, always water thoroughly but less frequently.
Yes.
So you're going to soak them really good. Check the soil moisture, because I think one of the things I see during droughty summers, and I don't know about you, Fred, but people would go out and they'd water. I call it the one can of soda watering method.
Spritz
Get out
method.
the hose, right? Water the lawn, the garden, the trees, the shrubs, and the time it takes you to drink your favorite beverage. And my student solution was drink a case. That was not the solution. You won't even remember what you're doing at that point. But a good thorough soaking is going to give you much better benefit.
But, Jan, I'm going to suggest that you hang in there, and by all means, don't drown, but do follow what Melinda's telling you. Regardless of what kind of good or bad soil you have, the principle's still the same. And then I have to mention to both of you, I sat at a 68-second stoplight one time because I've been trapped by it before. I watched a lady water a 24-inch diameter silver maple and 2 burning bushes in that 68 seconds.
Okay.
Jan, stay with it.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think what you're seeing is quite normal, and even and it's almost preferable right now that if the plant gets into trouble, if the leaves, color and or whatever, and then drop, this is a better sign from the internal structure of the plant, the leaf petiole connection, all this good stuff, is far better than for them to just turn black and hold. That would indicate maybe a potential. But I think right now, all of us, established plants or new, need to follow through getting them ready to go into winter, through into next spring, and it'll almost seem like a miracle resurrection when these harmed plants come back out next spring.
You bet. And watering is critical, as you mentioned, before things get cold for the winter. And don't give up on them. I think sometimes we give up too soon.
Yep.
And like you said, it'll be amazing next spring when they come back to life that they survived.
And we're talking this morning with our special guest, Melinda Myers. 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's is our toll-free number. And, Melinda, we had a call earlier from Wilma, and she wanted to know, when's the time to dig and replant her rhubarb?
You know, I'm interested to hear what Fred has to say. I'm a big believer in spring. I like to dig and divide as it comes up in spring. But I know all the books say, and a lot of others really prefer fall as the time for digging and dividing, much like your peonies. So, Fred, are you a spring or a fall digger and divider?
In terms of the rhubarb, I'm whenever I have the sharp spade. And I'm serious. And the reason for that is, as Melinda and I both experienced, the rules, the written word, all this stuff is valuable to us. But then we come down to so many hours in a day, days in a week, etc. Much to do in a given short time. So I have done both at home and on the occasional job where we try to move things. I have even moved rhubarb in, we'll call it, nearly full summer growth. I don't recommend that by any means, but we clumped them out, had the hole dug, soil prepared, put them in the ground, watered the daylights out of them. Both, in this case, both situations, the rhubarb and some other things of that nature died down top-wise. But given just about the time to scare us to death, 3.5, 4 weeks, up came some new shoots, almost like spring. Still a trauma we don't want to put a plant through if we have preferences in our use of time. But I don't see any reason why either fall or spring isn't right. I think it's a matter of move them fairly quickly, keep the soil moist, let them have a chance to get going, mulch going into winter with rhubarb and other such things. No more than 2 inches. Just take the shock out of freezing and thawing. And I think I don't have any reason not to move rhubarb in the fall. I would get it done darn soon so that the roots can redevelop in the new soil situation. But go for it now, or then wait till late March, early April, and do it again then.
You bet. And that just proves how resilient plants are, as you said earlier.
That's right.
Melinda, Fred always ends his program every week with a to-do list. So since we'll be saying goodbye to you here in just a minute, why don't you tell us your fall to-do list, things folks should be doing right now?
You know, one of the things that you want to do that's low on the list usually is keep weeding, because every weed you pull now prevents hundreds next year.
Yes.
Mulching, if you haven't, it's a good time to refresh your mulch around trees and shrubs. Leave your perennial stand. Here's a don't do something. Healthy perennial standing for the winter, is a good thing, because it's early yet, and I think the gardens are just starting to reach their peak, but everybody's out there ready to start, cleaning up.
Mm-hmm.
But keep cleaning up, keep watering if depending on the weather. Don't put the hose away until the ground's freezing, because you're going to need to water those stressed plants. And the bulbs are out in the market.
Yep.
Buy early, store them in a cool place, and then plant when the soil temperatures, when the nights are consistently in the 40s and 50s.
But don't call us in February and know if they can still plant. I think almost everybody's been there. Melinda, thank you ever so much for speaking to us from the northern climes. A good friend of mine just came back from his hometown in Minnesota, somewhat in your range of the world, and spoke to a wonderful fishing trip and a lot of friends and so on. So it must be nice pretty much all over our part of the world. Yeah, but I don't want to be on the East Coast with my daughter right now.
Okay, yeah, I don't blame you. So it is good to be in the Midwest. And
That's right.
Peak gardening right now. You know, the heat's subsiding and the gardens are looking good. So enjoy the season and just keep up with that proper care right now. And, always a good time to plant perennials, trees, shrubs, and buy those bulbs early.
Now, don't forget today, the game starts at noon.
I won't. I'm going to be here cheering. Luckily, I don't have a lot of close neighbors to give me a little boo from Wisconsin. Okay. And fertilize your lawn. I forgot to mention fertilize, Labor Day fertilization.
Exactly.
So in between, at halftime you want to watch the band, but after the game.
After the game. Thanks, Melinda. It's been great.
Care.
We'll talk to you again in the spring, if not before.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Fred.
You're
Mark,
welcome.
Take care.
And once again, 1-866-PLANT TALK with 2 T's is our toll-free number. More from Fred up next.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Welcome its tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
And let's go back to the phone lines, and let's talk to Greg. Greg, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. How can we help you, sir?
I have a question about an azalea bush.
Okay.
It's actually a beautiful, most of the time, we had about 15 years now. It's beautiful orange. People stop, look, ask you what it is, and so forth. And my question is there anything I need to do like now? Because I was always told don't touch it, and I never do. And every once in a while, it don't come out so good.
Well, Greg, if you have an azalea in Ohio, in the western 2/3, and it's 15 years old and it's only occasionally not coming out well, count your blessings. But to be serious now, azaleas and let's just say that nature of plant, rhododendrons and the like, all have a peculiar need for exceptionally well-drained soil. Now, that doesn't mean droughty, but well-drained. They can handle almost any normal temperature change within Ohio. But then on top of the well-drained soil, they need an acid fertilizer. So you can create that by using sulfur or aluminum sulfate, or you can simply go to the package shelf and buy acid or plants. It usually says fertilizer for acid-loving plants. Then another plant or another thing you can do is back to our theme today in terms of Milorganite. You could dress that on as a mulch. Now, I would stay at maybe, we'll call it a half an inch, and I might not do anything with it because azaleas are high-rooted, so I wouldn't try to work it in or whatever. I would maybe even mix it with the mulch and so on. Now, at this point in time, I'm not sure where you're calling from, but at the same time, rain has been exceptionally scarce in many areas and then deluges in others. But keep that plant moist from now through October is the best way to send it into winter because, and this is true of all plants, but especially azaleas and rhododendrons, with their special needs and their relatively shallow root system in so dry an area or dry a time, I would by all means every third week or even every second week a good thorough soaking just to keep the plant moist. Mulch going into fall if you wish. Now, I have what I'm going to call a permanent mulch under my azaleas, rhododendrons, and pieris and so on. I use oak leaves, and each year, because I have a front yard supply of them, each year I put about another 2 inches on top, which adds up probably to about a 4-inch depth of mulch. That on the bottom, or right next to the soil, is probably pretty well broken down oak leaves, which will have shared a little acid with the soil. They also are a wonderful buffer against fast freezing and thawing and so on, helping hold moisture, etc. Beyond that, if you've had luck with the plant for 15 years, the only thing you might be ignoring on those springs or prior to the spring that it doesn't come out is you may not have watered well, we'll call it sufficiently or regularly enough in the September-October period. It can be just downright bone dry in Ohio in the fall. Good for planting,